Hey everyone, it's Chelsea from ChelseaMakes. Today I'm going to be showing you how I created this miniature replica of the Annie storage cabinet by Leanne Ford for Crate & Barrel. Let's get started. In the description you'll find a link to the SVG files, and I'm cutting these out using my Glowforge. We'll be using a number of different materials for this project, but once everything is out of the laser, you can go ahead and unmask it. We'll begin with this piece, which is the front of the armoire. You'll notice it has 4 rectangles scored on top of it, and we're going to use an X-Acto knife to scrape away material within these scored rectangles. These are going to be where we place our miniature hinges, and they're going to allow us to open and close the doors of the armoire without any conflict. I'm just pressing down and scraping away. I want to remove about half the depth of the material to allow for the hinge. Now I don't recommend holding your fingers, though I am doing right here, just because it isn't exactly the safest. So be careful, and just like this, scrape away and keep your fingers behind the blade. Perfect. These are the hinges that I'm going to be using. They are linked in the description. And once you've carved away some of your material, you're going to want to check and make sure that your hinges fit flush within the frame of the armoire. This looks good, so I'll go ahead and set that aside. Now we want to sand down the cabinet doors and cabinet handles. I'm using my Dremel to make sure that the curved side of this is completely clear of laser cut remnants. You can also use a sanding sponge to give these pieces a nice, soft, rounded edge. Once sanded, I'm going to apply a little bit of glue to one side and align it to the coordinating door. A small amount of glue will go a long way, so once I have it in place, I like to use binder clips in miniatures to make sure things are nice and snug as they dry. So I'll just set that aside with my binder clip and work on the next door. Again, aligning the edge, small amount of glue, and using a binder clip to hold everything steady. Wipe away any wet excess glue and then allow those to sit until dry. Now let's grab the side panels for our armoire. You'll recognize these as the 2 rectangles that have a small scored line at the very top. We're going to use the same technique we used for the hinge slots on these scored lines and use our X-Acto knife to scrape away about half the depth of this material. This little recess is where we are going to attach the thin piece of veneer that we are using to make the arch. This piece here is the bottom of the cabinet. Apply glue to one of the long sides, and with the front piece of the cabinet facing down, attach this to the bottom of the cabinet. Hold it in place just to get a nice secure fit. Once the base is dry, we will apply glue to the side panels and attach those to the cabinet as well. Make sure that the recess that you carved for the arch piece of veneer is facing outward. Next, grab the back panel and apply a small amount of glue to the sides and the bottom. Press this into place, wipe away any of the excess glue, and allow it to dry. The arch of the cabinet is going to be made using a thin piece of veneer. I'm just rolling it back and forth with my hands to kind of soften it and allow it to curve naturally. The veneer I'm using has a pre-adhesive side, so before I peel the tape off, I just want to make sure it fits nice and snug. I'm aligning the piece of veneer with the recesses that we carved into the side panels. I'm just gently pressing it into place, and once I'm happy with the fit, I'm rocking it back and forth to make sure it's really secure. Don't worry too much about any gaps because we are going to be using some filler compound to make sure that everything is nice and smooth. I'm just using a coffee stirrer to apply this, and once dry, we'll go back and sand everything down. Continue this process on the rest of your armoire, making sure that all of the connections are filled. Once your filler is completely dry, you can begin the process of sanding down those joints. You may need to repeat this process a few times if your connections aren't quite smooth. Now let's move on to the legs of the armoire. There are some additional thin maple pieces which I'm going to be applying to the front of this leg. This is going to give the whole thing a slightly rounded, more strong appearance. I'm applying a small amount of glue to add these additional pieces on, and then I'm going to be using my handy dandy binder clips to keep everything in place until it's fully secure. Once dry, I'm going to sand everything once again with my dremel to make a nice smooth edge. Keep in mind you'll be doing this twice because there's both a front and back set of legs. Now I'm going to install the legs at the bottom of the cabinet. After that, I'm going to spray paint the doors and cabinet base the color of my choosing. Once the paint dries, go ahead and sand over any of the edges that you filled, making sure that you're getting a nice smooth finish. Go back and do a second paint coat as needed and repeat the process. Once you're happy with the finish, it is time to apply the hinges and doors. I am using this 2-part epoxy resin. You probably could use tiny nails, but honestly I just don't have the patience for that. So I'm going to mix together my 2-part epoxy and apply a small amount to the hinges. I'm going to allow the inside hinges to dry before I add the doors. Once completely dry, I will now align the doors to the hinges, bending them at 90 degrees so that I can easily attach the doors in the correct location. Here's a closer look of what the hinges look like when the door is open. Now it's time to decorate. Grab all of your miniature accessories and enjoy your tiny cabinet.